Thank you so much for joining us. As we always do before we get started, we just want to thank you all for the support. Thank you for being a part of the Search for Uhuru family. It really means a lot. Also, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the content. Again, as you come into the chat room, hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Again, hit that like button, share the content, and subscribe so we could grow our subscribers and also get more traffic and viewers to the platform. Again, that really means a lot. Make sure you go to dynastymirror.com. Again, make sure you go to dynastymirror.com. While you're at dynastymirror.com, please join the email list. Again, join the email list. Make sure you get your children's books. New book released, the newest book. It's Libation Time, a children's guide to the ancestors. Make sure you buy that and also get your merchandise, get your gear. Okay, make sure you do all that. Become a monthly Patreon, patreon.com, search for Uhuru. Again, patreon.com, search for Uhuru. Become a monthly Patreon, everybody. Let's see what else we got here. Anything else on the checklist? Oh, travel. Go to searchforuhuru.com, travel for people who are booking for your car rental, flights, hotels, cruises. Go to searchforuhuru.com, travel, and book your travel through there. Without further ado, we have Brother Adiel on with us today. And today's topic, going to Africa with an African mindset versus an American mindset. Let's hear. We live. Me, Mimo Kashe. We are live, brother or sister. I don't know, but guys, we're here. So that's today's topic. Brother Adiel, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. First and foremost, man, always a pleasure to connect with you. First time on the show. Really love what you're doing. Love the opportunity to be able to, build on this particular topic. 10 years ago, this what people wasn't talking about, the things that you're bringing to the forefront today. And so just a very different world. And man, I really appreciate what you do. And so, for sure, I'm going to say it again later in the show, but I want at least, a couple of people to make sure that they give their supports, and whatever we get in contributions today, I'm going to make sure that I match that. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
For sure.
I appreciate it.
So yes, my name is Yorai bin Adiel. I'm the CEO and founder of LOJ Fit Club, holistic health and fitness company based here in Atlanta. I'm also a dedicated member of the African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, who repatriated to Israel, Northeast Africa, back in the late 1960s. And so, my work is to continue on that legacy and always giving honor and praises to the God of creation and elders who came before us and all those who strive to do which is right. And so that's a brief introduction. Hope I, answered that.
And we'll get into the Hebrew movement
for sure.
Here later on. Let's see here. So what inspired this topic, Adiel? Like what do you see that's going on that inspired this?
Yes, for sure. So recently with onset of YouTube and different platforms like this, we've seen a lot of people. There's a lot of good things going on. Let's acknowledge that. A lot of people are coming to the realization that our dreams and the freedom that we have always, have searched for, especially being in this country for the last 400 years, is not going to come out of the same place that we were being held captive. And so a lot of our people are going back to, the continent. And with going back to the continent, it's great. But the one thing that we must understand is we have to go back with an African mind and not go back necessarily with the same mind that we possessed in America. So there has to be not only a physical relocation, but a mental and spiritual relocation as well, so that would guarantee our success. Other than that, we would create some of the same problems that we have here, because, wherever you go, there you are. And so recently on YouTube, been a lot of, controversy in certain countries. I've seen one in particular in Gambia, just some controversy and some things that people are doing there from African American standpoint, and a lot of the natives are not necessarily taking that very, very well. And so that's just a dialogue that we must really talk about and get this information out there so that we know exactly, not just, putting a plan together to physically relocate, but to really get back to a lot of our ancient cultures that will allow us to be in that land and to be able to develop how we want to. And so that's where it pretty much, was motivated from, just seeing that.
So what would you consider African mindset?
Yep, good question. So African mindset, that's, of course, we understand that there's a lot of different cultures and tribes and things like that within Africa. However, what's consistent in Africa is we've always had like a each one teach one. It's never necessarily been a mass level of where you're dealing with like class systems as we see here today. Obviously, you're gonna always have royalty, and you're gonna always have those things as much as people exist, right? But in the sense that it's always been about love and family and tradition and the land and being one with the land. These are things that are consistent within Africa and ancient Africa all throughout. And so, the honoring of elders, just certain things that you always be able to pick up, as relates to that. And so these things, what I would consider that, exist in African cultures throughout is what we have to make sure that we gain. There's a difference between male-female relations, male and female, how we act. That's just been a part of our culture. And so that's what I would say African mindset more so is.
All right, guys, make sure you get those likes up again, guys. Get those likes up. We'll open up the lines here in about 20 minutes. And you guys can call in and ask your questions. So let me ask you this. So now, as far as Black Americans, African Americans, or Africans who happen to be in America, we've been here for a while now. So we've kind of adapted or adopted this, I guess, was considered American mindset.
Right. So,
a lot of us are often criticized by bringing that mindset to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the Chinese, Lebanese, all these other groups who don't, I guess, reject their Chinese, Lebanese, whatever Indian mindset and adapt the African mindset. Instead, they consider themselves to still the Chinese, Indian, Lebanese, or whatnot.
Right.
Then you have a number of Black Americans who are like, look, I'm African American. I'm going to Africa, but I'm Black American. I'm Black American first. Why should I have to change my mindset or adapt this African mindset? I'm Black American. Like, what would be your response to that? Those who say I have a Black American identity.
Yep.
So why would I have to change my mindset?
That's great. I love that question, as always. Because the Black American and Caribbean mindset more so has been something that we had to adapt to. It's not necessarily something that we necessarily chose. It contains parameters, okay, based upon our condition in a particular captivity. So when I say the African mindset, this was something that we built, something that we chose to do. The American experience is something that we did not choose. So it's something that we had to adapt to, soul food diet, right? And that was something that we had to adapt to. They gave us just the scraps of the animals. But of course, us being us, we were able to, turn pig intestines into chitlins and put hot sauce on it. But it's not something that we necessarily chose. It was something that we adapted to. So when we say the Black American culture, most of the things that we think of are degenerative. We think about our music as degenerative. It's people may listen to it, but most certainly people are not necessarily, especially outside of our race, trying to adapt to that culture to the extent that the people who are the entertainers are actually living it, or who had to live. So a lot of our culture here in Black America is a degenerative culture. I was just speaking to somebody about this the other day, and I was like, you tell me, what are some restaurants that people different cultures go to that's Black American considered that, is uniquely just us. I really can't think of none. That's especially not some that's some.
What do you say uniquely just us? What do you mean?
Yeah. So like for example, we were just speaking just offline here a second ago, and you knew there was an Indian restaurant down the street from my gym, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So when you go into an Indian restaurant, you're going to see probably elephants. They're going to have a certain culture of foods, and there's a certain culture that goes along with that. What is that for Black Americans? What is that like?
I mean, some will say, the music,
Right.
right. Okay. Some will say the music. You come in, you hear, I don't know, R&B music. Some will say the music,
Yeah.
the ambiance. You'll see pictures of Gladys Knight. I mean, relevant soul. Hip hop,
Right.
music.
So that's you're proving it, exactly what I'm saying, right? So it's a small segment of things that has, especially in today's time, has been something that's more so degenerative in our culture. It's not something to really aspire to. It's not really ancient rooted. It's something that we just kind of created by being in the state that we're in.
Right.
And so that's exactly what I'm saying as relates to the cultural aspect, and that a lot of those things just don't mesh well with cultures that have a lot of dignity. A lot of what Black America is, we become more European than a European. A lot of these things that we've adapted to today was a foreign concept to us. We adopted this from being in the state of our condition.
So, is there such a thing as Black American culture?
Not really.
Okay, expand on that, because a lot of people will disagree and argue with you. Expand on that.
Right.
That's a touchy subject to many.
That makes sense, but we got to hit on some of these things to so that it can propel us forward. No, because when you start thinking about culture, some of the things that you got to put into culture perspective is land, a language. Right, a land, language, and a certain identity to go along with that. Food, different foods, things that encompasses that. Indian culture is distinct. You can tell there's a land that goes with it. There's a language. What language does Black Americans speak? We speak English, the language of those who oppressed us. So Black American culture is like a subculture of European culture that we just adapted. It's not a real actual culture.
Okay, guys, we're going to open up the lines here in about 17 minutes. I know there's some people in the chat room that might disagree with you. Guys, hit that like button. Again, please hit the like button as you come to the chat room. Hit that like button. Make sure you share and subscribe. Go to dynastymirror.com. Again, please go to dynastymirror.com. Somebody says we have a culture, Ebonics.
See, that's what I'm saying.
I'm sorry, we have a language, Ebonics. What would be your thoughts to that?
It's true, however, it's not something that will be respected. It's true, but it's not something that's respectable. You're not gonna go to China and somebody's gonna be like, hey, how do I learn that? That's somebody who's who's serious about cultural development. It's just not something that's respectable in that regards.
Let's see here. Constance Zulu, you said, so Brazil has no culture. No, Brazil recognizes their African roots heavily, their Yoruba roots. They'll tell you, like, if you go to Brazil and ask them about their culture, they will tell you the influence of African and Yoruba as far as the roots go. Here in Black America, it's like we want to have this, a lot of us have this, I guess, we say we have a Black culture, Black America culture, but a lot of us want to disconnect it from Africa.
Right, and that what you just said is exactly what it is. What I think though is being that America was a center and the powerhouse behind, the oppression, they cut us off more than the Caribbean and the South America was allowed to still do a lot of things that we once did. Here, if you got caught looking at the wrong thing, reading the wrong book, that could end you up, dead. So that's why we were cut off more than they were in the different parts like the Caribbean and South America.
All right. So what you're saying is when Black Americans arrive to Africa, they should leave the American in them in America.
I'm not going to say a blatant statement like that because there are some things that we adapted that was not necessarily bad, right? Or that we kept with us. So I'm not going to say a blatant statement like that, but anything that does not serve us, that's not healthy, doesn't have a positive vibration, we should definitely leave it behind. I'm not celebrating when I see Cardi B in Nigeria performing.
Right.
I'm not celebrating that because that's a thought, that's an idea, that is a culture behind that mindset that is now influencing people who've never been exposed to such ideas before. That's not going to be good.
Right, guys, again, hit that like button. Please hit that like button. And then we're going to open up the lines here in about 14 minutes. Again, we're going to open up the lines in about 14 minutes. So please hit that like button as you come into the chat room. Let's see here. Remember, Dynas, the Chinese and Lebanese don't come to Africa to settle permanently for the most part. Nigel, I disagree. Lebanese, there's Lebanese that have been there since the early 1900s. So, like, even before the end of colonialism, like way before the end of colonialism. So, I disagree with that comment. Let's see. We are no different than anyone in the diaspora. So give us more examples of what part of the, I guess, American culture experience that we should leave in America when going to Africa.
Yeah, so let's just start with the basics. Let's start with a language. We need to first learn a traditional, ancient language of one that was, created by us. That's something that's huge, because languages provokes and causes certain thoughts. So you might be cut off from certain thoughts based upon you not being able to speak a certain language. Okay. I would say dress. That's another one. We don't own, the major influences in dress in America. When you look at rappers who are a lot of, entertainers, a lot of the pushers of these things, they're just pushing further than a European agenda of dressing. So we should leave those things behind. And, again, rap culture and the way that it has evolved into today, that's something that's a touchy subject, but we got to leave that behind. It's not positive. And it's not going to produce a positive result. So those are the things. But I think the conversation that I would even more so, be more likely to talk about is what we should gain and what we have to gain from African culture that we have left behind by being outside of the continent of Africa.
Okay. Now, question. So explain to me the whole Hebrew Israelite. Israel is North Africa, Northeast Africa. Like, can you explain that to me? Like, help me out. Like, just I have an open mind. I still don't understand how the food is great. Love the food. They definitely stepped it up. For a minute, I was nervous because back in 2007, I started going to Soul Vegetarian in the West End where I live. And it was the best food I ever. I was going there every day, getting me a Garvey burger and getting me a slice of carrot cake every day in the Hebrew bakes.
Right.
Then I left Atlanta, moved to LA. Then I came back to Atlanta 2014. It was good. In 2015, it kind of fell off. Mm-hmm. But I gave it another shot, and I've been hooked ever since. Like, I got some new chefs. I don't know. They said chefs that left. I don't know. But I came back. This year I started going back, and I'd be in there at Hebrew Bakes. Y'all listen, off of Ralph David Abernathy in the West End, Hebrew Bakes, best desserts in Atlanta. I'll go in there and get the 6 for $6, the carrot cake, the blueberry lemon cupcakes, and the banana pudding carrot cakes will change your life. I go in there about 2 times a week. Love it. But can you explain the whole Hebrew Israelite? Because again, when I go to Africa, I go to West Africa.
Right.
Mende, Yoruba, Igbo, Phone. You know, and I've asked, I've asked the question, like, how are you? Do you guys consider yourself Hebrews? And they say no. This is our tribes. You know, we never called ourselves Hebrews. This is our tribe.
Right.
So can you break that down to me?
Yeah, great question. And so, you know, in a lot of the comments, right, rightfully so. Today's time, we've been seeing a lot of Hebrew Israelite being represented in a certain way based upon what people see on YouTube with certain, you know, groups, maybe screaming in the streets. A lot of them disconnecting their
read
Revelation
right. 20 chapter 20 verse 5 read
right, and disconnecting from the concept that we're African. Okay, that we're African. So rightfully so, anybody who's Pan-African isn't rightfully so. People who watching your channel should necessarily feel a certain kind of way based upon if somebody's viewing us to be different than that. I can understand that. But let me just say this. And this is not putting anybody else down, but I want to just state the truth. We're the largest group of largest group of Hebrew Israelite, you know, especially in Black America and outside the Caribbeans, etc. However, our message hasn't necessarily in today's time been propagated as such because we don't have enough YouTube presence and stuff like that. So, however, though, us being disconnected from the land of Africa be furthest from the truth. All right. So geographically, let's speak. You asked me the question. You said, how is Israel considered Africa? Israel sits on the African tectonic plate. I could take you to go see some stones that were right there in Israel in the Dead Sea, and it's going to read Halua Ha-Afrikani, which means the African tectonic plate. When you separate a country to know what continent it is in, you first got to identify the flora and the fauna, right? The plant life and the wildlife. Israel has the same flora and fauna as Africa. Hebrew is an Afro-Semitic language. Okay, it's an Afro-Semitic language. Think about it. When you open up necessarily, and people may have a certain way that they feel about the book, but when you open up the Torah or the Bible, you read in African names. Those are African Semitic names. So the land of Israel is literally landlocked with Egypt. So the great conspiracy to cut off the land of Israel and call it the Asia Minor, despite all the geographical facts that I'm stating, it was purposely constructed because then you might associate those people that were written about as something other than what they were, which are African people. So it literally sits on the continent of Africa. You can walk across the border to go straight to Egypt. How would it not be considered as Africa?
So Ruby Williams says Israel did not exist until 1940. So what
What she's referring to is that Israel has taken, that land has taken many different names in modern times due to who's ever controlling it. So that's not true. Israel existed prior to 1948 is what she's referring to. It existed prior to that, but for a minute it was called Palestine because that's who was in control of that particular land. But it was always a back and forth type of thing depending on who controlled the land at the time. Canaan's land, you got different names during different dispensations of time, but in the time of Israel, right, and during that time frame after Abraham, that land was considered to be Israel.
All right, everybody, please hit that like button. Please hit that like button. So then my next question is, as far as the Hebrew Israelites in America, how were you guys able to identify as Hebrew? But then when I go to West Africa, where the vast majority of us originate from, you know, they're Yoruba, Igbo, Fon, Mende, or whatnot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So I would say to what you're saying, the average person in Nigeria, whether they're Igbo or Yoruba or whatever, the average person is not necessarily, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of that separation. But there's always going to be in these countries, I'll share, so much content. I'll tell you exactly where to go. And in Nigeria and a lot of different West African countries, where you're going to talk to a small segment of people who will tell you, like, for example, there's a saying that Igbo was not even the actual original word. It used to be Hebrew. And so there's a lot of Igbo people that still basically live as Old Testament type of culture to this day. You never seen that before? You never seen it on YouTube, any of that?
Well, see, from what I gather, like the Igbos that consider themselves Jews or Hebrews didn't start recognizing themselves as Jews or Hebrews until the Biafran War, because they felt that as if they were being displaced and marginalized like Jews and Hebrews.
Right. So what happened was they were already practicing this, but again, the way the Europeans, they roll, once they seen this, they wanted to be able to get their influence on it. So of course they had influence on it because they had, the monetary capabilities to go break bread and then basically like, oh, okay, well, let me share our culture. So you're going to see similarities, but they were practicing this way before Europeans even knew they existed, before European Jews existed. So this was already in existence before the European influence. But like how they do in most places, they went and spread their influence within that. The Limba tribe, in different parts of southern
I'm
Africa.
familiar with the Limba tribe. Yeah,
the Limba tribe. You got a lot of Fulani. Recognizes this. So this was something that's been going on. If you talk to these people, they've been doing this for hundreds, thousands of years.
Okay, guys,
also,
I said
one other thing really quick. One other thing is, again, I've been, to Israel on multiple times. Literally, you can go to certain cities in Israel and it's going to be hard for you to actually find a European person, people that look just like me and you. And literally, I got film right now on my camera where a lot of sheiks and different high class and high respectable, individuals, especially in the Muslim culture, have been there for thousands of years and say, this is your land. Literally, I got it on the video. He said, this is your land. Come back. These are African people, but they keep them, just like in other places, they keep them in the dark. They keep them, to where places where people wouldn't be able to necessarily dialogue and kind of learn about their roots. But they've been there for thousands of years.
Okay. Guys, I sent the links out. So I need you guys to click on these links to come on. I sent the links out. So please check your emails so we could continue this dialogue. Also, November 3rd, Election Day. All right, we're going to be doing an election marathon starting 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to cover an election. You guys are more than welcome to call in. I think Trump's going to pull it out. Now, the states to watch: Florida, Pennsylvania, Arizona. I think he's going to get Wisconsin. Well, I don't know. Wisconsin and Michigan. He could lose. I mean, so he could lose Wisconsin. He could lose. I think he's going to win Michigan, but he could lose Wisconsin. He could lose Minnesota. As long as he gets Pennsylvania, Florida, Arizona, and we'll throw in North Carolina, he's going to win, because he's going to win Texas. And they're saying Florida's leaning his way. He should win. I'd be shocked if he loses Georgia. But like I said, those are the key states. So guys, I sent the link out. I'm waiting for you guys to call in so we can continue the conversation. Also, make sure you go to dynastymirror.com. Again, make sure you go to dynastymirror.com and then become a monthly Patreon. Patreon.com, search for, he's going to win Texas. I'll be shocked if he loses Texas. He's going to win Texas. Texas is not going to go blue yet. Yeah, Texas is not going to go blue yet. Not yet. I got a friend who swears he's going to win every state. But my friend, I'm like, that's not going to happen. Yeah, I told him that's not going to happen. So guys, hit that like button. Again, I sent those links out. I'm just waiting for you guys to click on those links so you guys can join the conversation. But here we go. All right, African Millennial, go ahead.
Hi, Dynas.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to add that I agree with some of the things said on this panel. However, most Africans they don't have that conscious mindset yet. So you kind of got to ease into it. Like you can't go 100% in until you actually find people who think like that. Else, it's going to be a situation where you'll be kind of secluded. I just wanted to add that to it. And another aspect of, I guess, an African American mindset is many African Americans don't take the time to actually understand African principles and customs. Like in terms of YouTube, for instance, I've been seeing a lot of YouTube bloggers do things like record the poor, and that is seen as disrespectful.
Record the poor. Are you serious? Record the poor?
Yeah, like go to poor communities and record them, because it's like, okay, you could go to poor communities and record them, but what are you doing to help them? Like if you're not offering them something like a donation, you're not asking them, can I record you? Can you be on camera? Those are seen as things as insults. You know, it's seen as you're just going there for your own gain, but you're not actually helping that person in that position. So that can actually be seen as a bad thing. Yeah, so people just don't take time to understand certain principles, and that's the reason why they're lonely when they go there. Some of them, not all of them.
Okay, you wanna add to that, brother Adiel?
No, I mean I agree with what she said. You know, just taking the time to learn the different customs. Like you have to know. You know, I was speaking to one of my entrepreneur friends, and he was saying he does business in China. He's been in China for the last 13 years. And so just to relate it, he was saying that if you don't know, he was like, listen, I'll teach you everything I'm doing in China. But he said, you're not going to be successful because you don't know the culture. He said, you know, certain things that they do in Chinese culture that if you don't do, they're not going to do business with you. And you're just going to be outside of that code. So a lot of what we built, you know, and on our pride as being African American, quote unquote, we go over there with a certain arrogance, and we don't learn the culture and the principles that African people and wherever it is in Africa, you know, abide by. And when you do that, that creates, you know, a synergy that you'll be able to do, you know, and get done what you need to get done, especially if it's something that's productive. So I definitely agree.
Yeah, you hit on it exactly, 100%. You don't understand the culture. And in the comments section, someone was like, don't BBC and CNN do it. Yeah, those are horrible examples. That's what I'm talking about. That's a Western mindset, because BBC and CNN is not doing it so, oh, these are the poor people. How can you guys get involved? They're doing it so that they can get likes, they could get views on their page, and they're doing it for their own agenda. So that's what I mean. Like, if you're going there with that type of Western mindset of I'm just going to capitalize off of people's trauma, that's not going to be welcomed. That's going to be something that people are going to insult you for, and they're going to question your motives. They're really going to be like, what are you actually doing here? However, if you're doing volunteer work, or if you're showing issues in which people can get involved and help, then that is the mindset that's welcomed. So it's just thinking about context.
Yeah, African millennial, I definitely agree. And you know, you said something. Well, CNN and whoever else is from the Western media, one of the most important things that their agenda is creating a perception about Africa that is not desirable, so that we don't never get over there and to be able to start to linking and collaborating with, because that would, for a lot of them, you know, that would mean that the detriment to their societies. So I agree 100%.
Anything else you'd like to add, African millennial?
I think she might have blacked out.
All right, Alfonso, go ahead, Alfonso.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, what's going on to both of you gentlemen?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I wanted to speak on what the brother is saying, Abdiel or whatever. I had over the lady on the on one of these channels. Her name African Tigress, right? And she had a show about the what was that, the repatriation. It was like a repatriation. She put the title that 1 billion was invested in, I guess, Ghana's economy as far as the tourism. And she was saying that it's people, I guess, that maybe been sending her emails to Black America, got nothing out of that, or whatever the case may be. So I was listening to the show, and I was listening to what some of the people in from Africans was saying or whatnot. And some of the people was bringing up a couple that has been doing negative videos about Ghana. And then you had, I guess it's a young lady that in the Gambia that has been making videos or whatever the case may be. But I think that the thing about it, because like I said, as far as certain things, it's been hundreds of people, thousands of people that are Black Americans that have bigged up going to Africa. I mean, a lot of people, I know Steve Harvey T. A lot of these people, even people that are small time YouTube people that have big up to Ghana and have talked about how nice Ghana is, and this is the thing, these different things. People have went to Tanzania, Gambia, Nigeria, yourself. But it just seems like with us, it's like a negative perception of Black Americans as a people. So it's like if you have one person that does something that's not like, it's like, okay, that represents all of us. And I think what the brother is saying is that when you talk about Black American culture or whatever the case may be, in that thinking, this experience is referred to as a captivity. So a lot of times with Black people, whatever, with Black people, they get offended. Black Americans, we get offended when we hear that you don't have no culture. It's like, okay, Black America has a culture, so we know the history of Black America. We know what we've inspired here globally, all that we've done, but it's kind of like a thing where Black American culture has went into a reprobate, went into a negative, and sometimes that's kind of hard to accept, but sometimes you have to deal with the truth, because look at our condition internally as a people, look at our values and our morals and these different things. So it's not saying that everything about us is a negative, but it's just saying that it's a certain perception of us in the free world. So when we talk about our experience, we're not, because me personally, I don't believe in the whole trying to go back to be a Yoruba and Igbo and these different, because them people have cultivated their own culture, after hundreds of years, and they cultivated their own cultural experience, for that works for them. But it's just certain things about America that we kind of have to leave here. You know what I'm saying? Like we kind of, I think that's a big truth. You know what I'm saying? Like when you talk about having the surname of Scott, Johnson, Jones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we need to give them back that name, because that was based on a slavery. That was based on them making you their property and stripping you of your nationality. You know what I mean? Or the different nationalities that we came from in the west coast of Africa. And there's certain things now that we're doing that we perpetuate and that we think that are really poisonous, and they're really 180 degrees different from the way the Creator meant for us to live. You know what I mean? So it's not to get down on us, because like we said, we know about jazz. We know. I mean, like I said, I will go out on a limb to say, as far as a people, at one time, we were probably pound for pound one of the most productive people during the times of Jim Crow in the late 1800s. But now, like our culture had just went negative. It just, like, we wouldn't be going through the things that we're going through as a community if it wasn't certain about our thinking and about our behavior that was reprobate. I mean, it just is what it is. And it's like when we go into the free world, we try to go to Africa and these different places, we're coming with a mindset that is negative a lot of times. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that the distance, but it just is what it is. And we said that certain stuff we could just leave here. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying everything about what they have going on in the Guinea and Liberia, these different places, is positive, but it's just certain things that we just need to leave here. And I think that it will allow us to be able to travel freely and not be stigmatized. Because that's more so what it is. You know what I'm saying? I think with that, because I'm like, well, how can these 2 or 3 individuals just flip the whole opinion of us as a people? But it's like it's just looked at like that. It's just looked at like, okay, these people are toxic people, and they gonna bring some type of what they perceive with the American Liberian attitude, and they gonna try to conquer us, and they gonna be over us, and they don't see themselves. And it's like, I feel like as a people, for us to survive as a people, a lot of the things that we adopted here, we do just need to leave here, and we need to cultivate our own things. That's why I said with the brother Abdiel, he's not trying to be super. I understand where he comes. He's not trying to be super religious and bring what people view the Hebrew Israelite thing as a negative. You know what I'm saying? I really see, because like I said, when people think about that, they think about, like you said, One West in that movement. And if you really study Ben Ami and read his book, God, the Black Man and Truth, them people was all about being, African, and going back to an African mind, and going back to, stripping away, the poisons and the mindsets of America, and returning back to that world. You know what I'm saying? They was all about that. You know what I'm saying? So that's all. That's all I want to say. Just to clear up things. I don't know if I made myself clear, but it's just like that the Black American thing is this, as a people, is looked at, just as a negative. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and it's like, we have to look at where are we going now as a people? You know what I'm saying? Where are we going? How is this culture that the direction that the culture has went? How is that really helping us, in my native land of Detroit or Miami or Atlanta, these different type of things? You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying this whole experience is wrong, but it's just certain stuff that we need to just let it go. You know what I'm saying? And just go in a different direction as a people. So that's all I wanted to say.
All right, brother. We appreciate you coming on, man. You want to respond to that, Adiel?
Not much. I just, he said an extended amount of things, but I agree with, some of the things that he was saying, and that's about it. We can move on.
Okay. Brother Assad, go ahead.
Thank you guys for allowing me to be on here. I want to ask the brother, what did he think about New Orleans? Because I'm from New Orleans, and as a New Orleanian, we have a very specific culture that is very different from your typical African American culture. We have our own funeral traditions. We have our own food. Like, soul food is not a thing or a big thing in New Orleans. We have, jambalaya, which is a variation of jollof rice from Nigeria, and a combination of that and a Native American dish. Gumbo, which comes directly from West Africa. We invented jazz music. So my question is, what do you think about those type of cultural contributions from places like New Orleans? And it's
great question. And a lot of the things that we've created, I mean, we're creative people. So in the midst of being in a captivity as great as this, we were able to still create and do a lot of things in subcultures as relates to that. But it still falls into the same category. These were things that we had to build with a limited amount of resources and a limited amount of understanding, especially after a time from being away from our homeland. What I'm more interested in is seeing what we're going to be able to create with no boundaries and freedom. Because again, that was still created in the midst of, New Orleans is not free from slavery, because it still happened there, right? So with that being said, it was still a mixture of things that we were limited, in having, that we just had to create. And that's would be my response. But it don't mean that some of those things, like in my perspective, hey, keep the gumbo, but instead of putting pork in it, seafood, let's do a plant-based option of it. You understand what I'm saying? So keeping some of those things, but again, making it to where it is something that is regenerative and not degenerative, because we've been in a downward slope, not an upward.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree with that. New Orleans has a unique tradition as it relates to African Americans. We have our Congo Square. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Congo Square. For the last 300 years, Africans have been meeting in Congo Square every Sunday to drum. and dance. I mean, we have kept a lot of what we consider as African traditions alive. I mean, it is the reason why Vodun or Voodoo, as some people call it, is alive and well in New Orleans. You know, so we have to. I say that to say that, you know, a lot of times we don't recognize how African uh, some of our customs are as Black Americans. We assume that it's something that originated here. But you're absolutely right. Our customs and culture as Black Americans have originated in captivity and have been influenced by the captivity. However, it doesn't diminish the fact that they are cultural contributions. What would the United States be without jazz music, right?
Right. Right. And to respond to the comments, I'm definitely answering the question. So the question that the brother just asked was about what about those cultures? Well, one thing that he just said out of his own mouth is what? A lot of these traditions that he's referring to out of New Orleans came from Africa. So it's still going back to the same very thing, which is the culture came from something that was more ancient, something that we created in our freedom, not a subculture that we had to create based upon our limitations in the captivity. So that's the answer to the question. It's still African culture. So we saying instead of just having a little piece of it, let's dive back into it and elevate it to its highest standpoint so that we can benefit and eat the fruits from, the tree that already exists.
Dig that.
Any other questions, brother Assad?
No, no. I just wanted to point out the uniqueness of my city. You know, the uniqueness of New Orleans and its place as a like I've been to Africa 20 times. My wife and I just purchased our second property in South Africa. But when I look around the United States, New Orleans, besides maybe the Geechee and Gullah Islands in South Carolina off the coast of Georgia, New Orleans is probably the single most African city, I would say, in the United States. And for us, when for those who are not necessarily aware, we just think it's New Orleans culture. We just think we are New Orleanians and this is the stuff that we do. You know, we carry caskets throughout the street when someone dies and we dance and celebrate. And we just think, oh, that's New Orleans culture without recognizing the West African connection to that, the Ghanaian connection to it. You know, the stuff that we do, the jazz music that we created, it can be traced directly to enslaved Africans. So I just wanted to point that out.
All right, brother. We appreciate you coming on.
No problem.
Peace.
Guys, again, hit that like button. We have almost 300 people watching. So please hit the like button. Also, like, share, and subscribe as well. Again, like, share, and subscribe, and go to dynastymirror.com. Make sure you get your merchandise. Again, go to dynastymirror.com, you guys. Get your books, get your merchandise. Greatly appreciate it. All right, Kashka, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to just double down on how y'all doing. My name's Kashka. Hey, everybody.
Peace.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to double down on what the brother Ben was saying. Saying we don't have culture. I don't agree with that. And the previous scholar, he made a good point with connecting the dots with New Orleans culture and African culture. But you can also connect the dots with California, crump dancing. That's very African. Break dancing, b-boying in New York, that's African. That's almost like capoeira if you look at it. The movements is backwards capoeira. So we still have a lot of our African cultural identity as well. Like my mom's sisters, her name was Bespectable. She named her son Tashambi. Like we still carry our African names as well. It's just not heard of much. So it's not like we don't have culture and our culture isn't strong either. It's very strong. And I do think it can be better if we were not under captivity, like the brother Ben said. But I feel like we already influence most of the African world. Everybody looks up to us. Everybody wants to talk like us, whether you in Nigeria.
But again, when we say people look up to us, the culture is like the sub gutter culture that people emulate.
Unfortunately.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm not claiming that.
Yeah.
You know, I would rather say, you know, when I'm in Lagos, okay, a Black American man, I could point to a stoplight and say that was created by a Black American man. But
Right.
instead, we want to point to 50 Cent sagging and an African saying nigga. what's up, my nigga, and be like, yeah, they want to be us. They want to be us. I mean, I'm not like, I don't get excited about that.
I mean, what about during the civil rights movement? I mean, there's a lot of people over there who looked over to
No,
America.
you're right. You're right, but that was 60 years ago. We're talking about 2020. And right now, 2020, when people continue to say Africans want to be us, is always the ghetto ratchet subculture of Black American. I don't want to call it culture. It's just that ghetto ratchet, I would say, segment of Black America that they emulate. And I don't go to Africa for that. And like the minute they say, "What's up, my nigga?" or something stupid like that, I check them. Like, I'm not your nigga. That's what it like. Usually when people say the Africans want to be us, man. Okay, give me an example. Man, they listen to 50 Cent. I'm like, oh, come on, bro. Like, come on, man. Like, I mean, I don't get excited off of that.
I mean, what about the Africans that like crump dancing? Israel Adesanya, the UFC fighter, the middleweight champion of the UFC. He is a heavy crump dancer, and he's from Nigeria. That's your country, Dynas. Omo Niger.
I guess, bro. I mean, I guess. I mean, I guess.
Kasha, in response to you, obviously, and to everybody in the comments, you know, who feels the same way. Obviously, when you're in a particular place and you have other people who have been through the same experiences, you're going to develop certain living traditions based upon that, which can be considered a culture. So, yes, there is a culture that exists, but the culture, as Dynas is saying, it's not a culture that will be well represented, that will have a lot of respect for it, because most of the things that people know about Black Americans is the subcultures and the things that are ratchet, ignorant, and degenerative. Like, if I think of when in Ghana and they say a Chinese man is coming, they are going to expect certain things based upon Chinese traditions for that China man to bring. So in some cases, they're like, hey, we welcome it because they're going to bring something that we don't have based upon their culture. But when you think of a Black American going to a certain place, the first thing they want to know, okay, is he a rapper? Like, what is he? Something, or entertainer, of something that's got to do with entertainment, but not something of high regards. That's just not what you think of. That's just the bottom line. And so we don't have a very dignified culture. It doesn't exist. Yeah, you think of the most Real Housewives of Atlanta. I mean, you think of the most ratchet stuff when you think about us. But this is not, let me say this though. This is not something that was not by design. This had to be, because if we had a dignified culture and we were able to keep that through the captivity, then we wouldn't have been able to be in captivity. So they had to make sure that everything, when you start looking at the entertainment, who's behind it? It's being purposely propagated to us to make sure that this is what reigns, not anything that's of high regards and high respect. We're capable of it, but we're just up against a higher enemy.
How is that any different from an Afro-Brazilian or an Afro-Surinese or an Afro-Guyanese? People in the diaspora. We're not the only people in the diaspora. Afro-Haitian, Afro-Cuban. We also have our own culture that's distinctive to this area. So I don't think that it's any less than those other countries that are a part of the diaspora as well.
I disagree, man. Like, Afro-Brazilian culture is like, I mean, you can't tell the difference sometimes between Afro-Brazilian culture and Africa, because it's so rooted. Like, it's so rooted in Africa. It's completely different, bro. Like, it's completely different.
Yeah, I guess, man. Well, yeah, I just wanted to make our point. I wanted to be a representative for Black Americans over here. I feel like we still have a lot of African. We got a lot of work to do, but I still feel like we have a lot of our Africanness intact.
No. Well, I mean, but again, if you talk to some people, they'll be like, no, we're not African. We Black American.
That's dumb Negroes, and you got.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's a
majority. That's the majority.
That's a large segment.
But guys, check it out. What about the people in Africa? What about the people in Africa who say, I'm not Black, No, I am African. I'm not black. You're still black though. You blacker than me.
But that's their choice of being how they want to be identified.
Okay, so
but it's not the same as what we're referring to as relates to the cultural aspect of it.
Okay, I guess you. Yeah, that's not the same. Definitely, you do got some niggas over here some Negroes who like to
the vast majority.
I am Hebrew Israelite. We live on Turtle Island.
Maybe so.
Yeah,
for sure. I'm not in disagreement.
But that's all I wanted to say, guys. Thanks for letting me call in again.
All right, no problem, brother.
Peace,
bro.
Peace.
All right, guys, we got a couple more callers in the queue. Again, guys, hit that like button. Again, hit that like button, everybody. Please hit the like button. I sent the link out to some more people, so just waiting for you guys to hop into the chat. We'll wait a couple more minutes, and then we'll start closing out. Let's see here. Let's read some of these comments in the chat room. Well, here we go. All right, go ahead, Angelica.
Sorry, that's my dog in the back barking. But basically, let me close the door. Basically, that I didn't used to believe that we were Hebrew Israelites like a long time ago. But then I started to read the Bible in Genesis chapter 15, verse 13 through 14. It said that Abraham, that your descendants will be enslaved for 400 years and brought to a nation that they know not and be enslaved and mistreated there. And that's when my eyes opened up. And then another scripture is Genesis chapter 10, verse 1 through 5, that it says that the sons of Japheth were Gomer, Jabal, Tubal, Meshach, and Ashkenaz was one of the, sorry, I'm just so nervous. Ashkenaz was basically one of the sons of Gomer. And verse 5, it says that these are the Gentile nations. So it's Genesis 10, 1 through 5 that says Ashkenaz is a Gentile nation. And I believe that we should, like, we're Africans too, we're Hebrew Israelites, but we're Africans too, and that we should go back to the land and experience the culture and just embrace it, because we are Hebrews, but we're also Africans too at the same time, basically.
And you got something to say, Dinas?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, in response, she's absolutely right. She's referring to, if you go and read Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, it literally verbatim breaks down exactly what we went through slavery. There's no other text that literally verbatim, states something that was prophetic that has not happened yet, that state exactly what our experience was. But here's what I want people to understand. My job is not to try to convert you to some type of religion or whatever the case may be. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is ensuring that we are living a divine way of life, from the way that we eat to the way that we think to what we create, music, entertainment wise. That's all my concern is. If I choose to identify as an African Hebrew Israelite, that's my prerogative. That don't necessarily mean that that's what you got to choose. Yeah. You could be whatever, and as long as you are operating in what I refer to as righteous, then we can live in peace. That's a low vibration. This is not a religion. This is a way of life. It's a cultural traditions. Okay, if somebody's saying they're Yoruba, you're not getting offended. An Israelite is something based upon a cultural understanding. If you think in today's time that Europeans wrote what we call the Bible, you just miseducated. I feel sorry for you. Okay, it's just not the case. They did not write, especially the first 5 books of that book. The whole book it opens up in the Garden of Eden. Where's the Garden of Eden? It gives it by geographical. Africa. Yeah, it's right there from Ethiopia to modern day Iraq, which includes Ethiopia and Egypt and all these different lands in that particular segment. So these are all African countries. Okay, Moses, he married an Ethiopian wife. King Solomon got his jury in Zimbabwe. So it's all about Africa. It's not even, Europe is not even mentioned in there. So if you think Europeans wrote this kind of text, you just miseducated, and I feel sorry for you. But it's not my job to try to convince you of that. We don't even have to have that dialogue. That's just something people get emotional about because, again, the rhetoric that certain people who call themselves Hebrew Israelites or whatever, and, you know, screaming in the streets, they've offended a lot of people. So people are angry. So you seeing me through that lens, and I'm telling you that I'm not that. I'm not that. And you would be doing yourself a disservice and not being able to connect. Yeah, you're not going to be able to connect with what I would have to offer because you're still stuck in this particular lens. And I'm just telling you that that's not the case.
Angelica, anything else you want to add, sister? Angelica.
No, that's all. That's all. Love you. Thank you, Dinus.
Love you too. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dinus, for what you do, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate you,
Thank
sister.
you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. No problem. Anytime. Thank you, sister, for joining.
Peace.
All right, bye-bye. All right, Black Ambassador, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, yo, thank you, Dinus, for what you do.
Yeah, no problem. Oh yeah, guys. Let me announcements. So we are doing an election marathon. All right, starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Search for Who. We gonna watch. I'm gonna have Brandon on. You know, we gonna watch the election. You know, we're gonna have fun and watch the election. So if you guys want to join us, we're starting Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, everybody. So come and join us and watch the election. Go ahead, Black Ambassador.
I'm definitely gonna have to watch that. Probably on the playback. I'll be asleep over here. But yo, I definitely had to came in late because I was over somewhere else. But I definitely appreciate what the brother just said. Actually, recently, when he was just speaking about I'm not that type, man, and if you are of a different type, then you can be what you are. Whether you're from Turtle Island, I know you make fun of that a lot, Dinus, but I think it's vastly important to allow people to be their own entities within this bigger nation in which we're building. And then, like he said, you're living righteous, you're living by certain ways, and we can start to sketch out what that looks like. And I think that's very valid. And I had it more so of a question. I didn't want to get on here and preach. I know the title that said when you go to Africa, go with an African mindset and not an American mindset. And I was asking the brother if he ever thought about what does it look like as far as an African mindset for in evolving in things that we call economics, right? Trade, services, and products. How would we make that look like? You know, what would we make as a system of organization?
Okay, I love that question because this is a very interesting subject. So, okay, as it relates to economics, the first thing that we have to do is we have to ditch the capitalistic mindset that we have because capitalism causes things like cigarette industry to be alive. Okay, the cigarette industry kills 400,000 people a year knowingly, but because it's profitable, they're going to continue to keep it alive. The African mindset is understanding that people always come first. So if the industry is destructive to people, then we can't have it within our land, especially in the times that Africa, was thriving. We understood the importance of what this particular thing might have had on the land itself. You know, do we just tear down these trees because we can make something out of them, despite what the purpose of the tree was? So dominion, we got to understand that word dominion. Okay, with image comes dominion. And so what dominion means for the Europeans and what we've been taught, you know, in the captivity means that, okay, this is ours. Let me just do what I want to with it. Okay, let me do what I want to with the animals. Let me do what I want to with the minerals. Let me extract it. There's no laws to anything. With an African mindset, we understand laws and limitations. So there's a certain science that when you till the land, right? There's a certain science that goes along with that. When you're creating products, you know, we got to go through this very proper understanding and training on how this may affect the environment. Because dominion in the African mind meant a responsibility that the earth was here before we were. So we are not privy or arrogant enough to think that we just come here and do what we want to. We have to maintain that certain vibration. That's an African mind. And so if that mind is in existence and is thriving, then that European mindset, a Western mindset, it cannot be in existence. And so that is why it's imperative that we must understand a lot of these traditional thoughts and things that we learned back then. So that's my answer to that.
Oh man, that was amazing, bro. And can I do another one, Dinus, if that's cool?
No, take your time, bro. Take your time.
All right, cool, most definitely. Because I feel like sometimes we have black men and black women on here and on these streams that have amazing perspectives and look at the world through an entire different lens, like Dr. Inani says, or Dr. Emerson Wilson, from an entire different centric, like a Sealy, she calls like a seed. They look at the word from a different type of center. And we don't really ask questions. We might argue against it, or I might tell you my opinion, and I know what I think, right? And I've been on here many times, but I want to hear what you think, and I would ask the same question in what we call "quote unquote" in the Eurocentric sense, politics. What would be the African mindset around how we shall govern a nation, or what would we describe it? A civilization, not a nation state. I mean, whatever, anything that you could think of.
You asking me that question?
Yeah. So the same kind of question about the African mindset, but towards the things that we call "quote unquote" politics.
Yep. Okay, that's another great question. So this one, we got to go back to the root. What is our root? What is the basis? What are we even here for? What is the purpose? And so with an African perspective, traditional African perspective, we've always been a spiritual people. See, the problem is people think that when you start talking about things like the Bible is not a religious book. You can't find a religion in the Bible. It's a spiritual book with spiritual principles. Thou shalt not steal is not a religion. It's thou shalt not sleep with your brother's wife is not a religion. Okay. These things are not religious doctrines. So the basis that we got to do first is to establish the relationship back to our concept of what we would call a God. And when we understand what may be the interest of that creative energy that created us, what is the interest and what is the benefit of him having us on this particular earth? Once we understand that, then everything else needs to be created from that. So then we need to create a system that makes sure that things are governed in that way, from the economics, from from a legislative standpoint, meaning certain things that get passed. If it's not positive and it's not keeping that vibration, we have to move against it. And so we create, again, a system of honoring the elders and getting wisdom from counsel from the elders. These are all African traditions with people who make, a concept of a priest, right? Somebody who spends their time trying to understand these sacred laws and understandings. So we got to base it back to that. We've lost our spirituality. We've traded it for religion, which then caused us to get rid of our power. And now we're trying to scramble and see what's the problem. That's the first thing we got to do is we got to reestablish the spiritual aspect of this. And then everything else can be restored once we have that. Once we have that as our basis.
Okay, most definitely. And I want to just add on there for us layer of story of reality. In 2020, right, if you go to China, the amount of property that you can buy in Hong Kong is $1,535 per square foot. In New York, Manhattan, it's one of the most expensive places per square foot in the world. And this is in China, might I remind you. But they make the same amount per GDP, per capita, per person that is made in Brazil. But they have more home ownerships than Americans have cars. Why is that? Because based on their culture, family and friends pull money together to purchase property for family and friends. Friends, could you imagine yourself in the West paying your friend so he can get a property for his family and it's his third property? That's something that's probably unheard of. But what really happens is that they've been able to uplift the cultural norm in their society and then infuse it with the economics. Though I'm not saying let's do what they're doing. But what I'm just saying is when the brother speaks about having an African-centric economics around commerce and trade and services and bartering, there is benefits from it. Even though those people can be poorer than Americans, they don't have $60,000 as an average white American in America, but they still have more home ownership than Americans at a place that's even more expensive than most places in America. And it's just because way the culture sees things. So I think it's very important and it's imperative that we focus on the culture. And I did want to ask one question, but since we're on YouTube, we won't ask about the African-centered of military. So we'll keep that off for an off-show conversation. So the same thing I would ask in one more aspect, and that's communication, since we're on YouTube, right? What would African-centered or an African...
Hold on 1 second. Hey, real double, you got to turn off your the background. You got to pause your video. Turn the video off. Real double, you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
You got to turn off the video.
I got you.
Yeah, so
Go ahead, Black. Go ahead, Black.
All right. So yeah, the question, brother, right here is, so what would be an African mindset around communication and information? Because sometimes I think when we do communication, like you said, entertainment, right? We don't do it from an African-centered perspective. I mean, we just propagate whatever Black misandry that comes from other people. So what do you think an African-centered communication and information would look like too?
Yeah, for sure. So not all things that are modernized are necessarily bad. It's more about the application of it. So the invention of the internet, first of all, many say that a Black man created the internet. I'm not particularly sure. I wouldn't doubt it. However, there's nothing necessarily wrong with the internet. It's the application. If your children are just simply making TikTok videos with destructive music, then we understand that application of the internet, that form of communication, is destructive. So I think the more important thing is that we got a lot of forms like YouTube, like Dinah's, show. This is a wonderful platform of communication. Now, I would argue that we need our own platform so that we're not going to be, censored, because, in a appointed time with this kind of information, if they see that it's doing something that is in opposition to their, agenda, then they'll start monitoring, what's being allowed to be, they said, look, you got the freedom to speech, but not the freedom to reach. So they've been manipulating the algorithms to what's being allowed to get more, content out there to the people. So I think communication is evolving, and I think a lot of us African minds have created it. However, we just need to learn how to make sure that it's applied correctly, that, certain sites should not exist in the African world, that's promoting, perversion or this and that. That's what I'm more concerned with, is the application, not necessarily just the form of communication.
Much appreciated. Wait, one more, Dinah. It's just education. That's it.
Go ahead.
Education. What would that look like? African education.
Yep. So the purpose of education is not just to know. The purpose of education is to do, right? It's to be able to get educated about a specific subject so that you can do a particular thing. The education system in the Western world is only based upon gearing you towards their agenda, what they want you to do to work within their system. Anything outside of that, it's not useful, so they're not going to teach it. So education has to be, first and foremost, our first education is about the earth, where we came from, what our concept is as relates to a God concept. And that's the first form of education. Then that will make sense. And now you're going to be dealing with people who has a sense of purpose. So now the next form of education is tools and understandings and basic entrepreneurship skills on how to create institutions that will help protect, provide, and nourish the environment that we're in. And so that's what education has to look like in the future for an African mind, if we are to gain influence. And that's what I would say.
Man, I appreciate it all. I know I kind of just ran through a couple of questions, but I would really hope that our communication streams are really end up, what I would say doing is, kind of expounding on the guest and the host, ideas and asking different questions and just hearing it out versus me arguing to my limitations. It's always good to hear another brother and his perspective about what he wants to do and what he wants to bring forward, especially when it comes to creating something entirely new. So I'll rock with it. Dinah's Demir, you already know, you the trailblazer of it, like I spoke about before, right? There was no content out here before. I seen this brother in actually Nigeria showing Africans that they can actually become citizens. And he showed us vlog after vlog after vlog that it was possible. Though he called that embassy a while back ago. And he called
Yeah.
And they said, nah, you can't do that. Now he could have went back and cried and got a Benz, got a Ferrari, and then went back to Brazil with his racially ambiguous whatever. But he's
Right.
going to stay on the continent and stay in the fight. So much love to you, brothers, man. I'm not going to hog up much time. I want somebody else to get on here. But thanks for having me on. And, brother, thanks for all your positions. And I wrote them down. So much love to all of you.
Yes, sir. Peace.
Appreciate it, bro.
All right.
All right, Randy. Last caller. Go ahead.
Yes, Dennis. My name is Randy. I wanted to well, first, I'm from the Bahamas, and my family's from the Bahamas and Haiti, and I just wanted to speak on American culture. Uh, my personal view is that I think that every single culture in America is Black American culture. You know what I mean? Because I feel like Black Americans created like the whole entire culture, like they created everything in America. So you know, and as far as the culture turning toxic, like I believe that was planned. You know what I mean? To try to, because me personally, I'm a student of history, and it seems like there was a lot of different things that they put in Black American people way to kind of keep them from rising. You know what I mean? But as far as the culture, like I feel like Black Americans created a culture. It got toxic because you know obviously white supremacists don't want to see Black American people rise in this country. And so I just wanted to make one more point also, man, about the Hebrew Israelite thing, right? I feel like that's something that people Black people, African people, you can't get away from that because that's just what it is. There's over 2,000 years of documented history of those people moving across the African continent, going to South Africa and moving across to West Africa and moving to North Africa and were in Europe and were taken from slaves in Europe and sent to, well, one of the first places they sent them to was Haiti. And then they started sending them around different parts of the Caribbean and into the United States. And so basically, that's all I wanted to say. So peace, Dennis.
All right, no problem, brother. Thank you.
All right.
All right, brother. Adiel, go ahead and respond.
Yep. I think you made some valid points. Much respect for him coming on, and exactly what he's saying as relates to the aspect. I mean, for people who think or who are saying certain things like, and I didn't want to make this about the Hebrew thing. That wasn't even the topic of the discussion. But of course, people quite naturally, again, they feel some type of way about it. But in response to what he said, just to be respectful to him, people quite naturally have a distaste for the Bible, Christianity, and a lot of things that came along with the captivity, as they should. And then again, there's New Age types of the lens that they're seeing different Hebrew Israelites through, etc., which causes a problem when it triggers something when they hear that term. And but you can't to think. People are saying in the chat in some cases that this was created in 1948, when Israel was created, or this is very new concept, or it's all a myth and all that kind of stuff. That's just silly to me. It just lets me know that you're not necessarily, in a lot of cases, are a student. I've studied this stuff my whole life, but not just in the cultural aspect of the Israelite culture, but African culture in general, because this is what I have a passion for. So that's just an ignorant statement. And, but if you want to learn more, be sure to reach out to me, and I'll teach you my perspective if you are somebody who's interested in dialoguing in that way.
All right, cool. So, brother, what we'll do, we'll go ahead and close out. Anything else you'd like to share in closing?
No, sir. Just other than the fact that you can find me on Instagram at LOJ Fit Club. I run a holistic health and fitness, company where we teach people getting back to, the understanding of meditation, plant-based nutrition, herbs, and, the good things, again, living the ways of naturally. So as LOJ, as in Lion of Judah Fitness Club, LOJ Fit Club. You can find it on Instagram. Other than that, Dinus, I'm looking for. Somebody said in the comments earlier that I guess my statement on capitalism, they said, don't let Abube hear that. That's actually one of my favorite guests that you have. I like him. So we need to find a way on how to be able to, I want to be on with the brother. So other than that, man, I appreciate you for having me on. And, let's look forward to building more.
Yes, sir. Everyone, thank you so much for joining Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Go to dynastymirror.com. Tour. Oh, Sierra Leone. We're going to Sierra Leone April 21st to the 30th. Come and join us again April 21st to the 30th. We are going to Sierra Leone. Until next time, family, Dynasty Mirror, search for Huru. Peace.